So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemise Your Success. Hi John, thanks very much indeed for coming along and having a chat with me today. I thought I'd kick off and tell you how I actually got to hear of you. So we, I think, became Facebook friends via friend of a friend or whatever.
Yeah.
And then either you mentioned on Facebook or it popped up onto my Kindle list that you'd written a book. This was back in, I think, November 2017. And at the time I was helping people to systemize their businesses and just really getting my head around that and just starting out. And this book was called Stress to Success, From Stress to Success. And I didn't really know what to expect, but because you'd written it and you were a friend on Facebook, I thought I'd give it a go. And what I found was a massive wealth of information and knowledge about systemizing businesses. So I just want to start off and say thank you. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant book. And I think what that book did for me, above many other books, was put things in a very simple but plain and implementable language and a method that you could do rather than trying to sort of overwhelm. So just well done on that. And if anyone's not read it that's listening to this now, I highly recommend it. It's From Stress to Success by John Paul. So I'll come back to a few bits about that later. But first of all, I want to go back to your life today. So what has that done for you, that process that you went through in writing that book? What does your life look like, or your day-to-day work?
Well, what it's done for me is a couple of things. One, it's I'll be completely honest, it's lifted my brand and authority within what I do, coaching wise and stuff. So, you know yourself, anyone who writes a book is perceived to have that little bit more knowledge than somebody who hasn't written a book. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but I do try my best. So the second thing what that did is that allowed me to step out of my business, because we, walk the walk. We truly had implemented that sort of stuff in the business. But because of that, we grew and scaled the business, my agency, quite quickly around about that time. And in fact, pretty much over the last 18 months, we've doubled the business in size from 6 branches to 12, and we've got a couple more acquisitions on the go. So actually putting that type of stuff that I speak about in the book into practice in the business, it has really allowed me to take a step out. And if I'm honest, I'm probably in the business a couple of days a month in the agency. I'm not in it at an operational level at all. For instance, I've had a senior management meeting this morning with my core-board directors. That was an hour and 10 minutes. I had an operations meeting with my MD and area managers on Friday. That was a bit of a longer one. That was a 2-hour one, but I did about 10% of the talking, which was nice. So it allows me to be purely strategic, as well as the actual processes and procedures. It's taken a bit of a mindset shift to get out of the tactics and get into the sort of strategy. But for me now, I'm out of the business and I can do what I love, which is the coaching and scaling of the business. So
basically, you've gone to running a large successful agency in 2 days a month, in effect.
Pretty much. I mean, I don't, right? So there's a bit of a caveat here. There's running it and then there's running it, right? I've got an amazing MD who is a better manager of people than I'll ever be. The running joke is I can't even tie her shoelaces when it comes to managing people. And then she teaches, and her passion is coaching and management. Mine's not. I'm not a very good manager. I'm definitely more of a leader. Definitely, come on, let's go and do it. Let's just run ahead. Where Adele is very much, come on, let's have a look at it. Let's analyze what went well, what didn't go so well. Come on, arm around the shoulder type of mentality. So yeah, there's running it, and then she runs it. Yeah. If I'm honest.
But I guess if you look back to the beginning a bit, and at some point it was you. Like there was this transition from. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at some point you were doing all of the stuff that she now does.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so when did that start for you? When did it go from you were you one-man band at the time? Did you have a business partner? Was it you doing everything and then?
I was doing everything. So we started 2008-9 really. And it was just a letting agency we had at the time. And I was doing everything from collecting the rent to, the bottle washing and doing the accounts and, sending the arrears letters, you name it. I was doing everything. And then I had 1 staff, 2 staff, 3 staff, and it just started going up and up and up. And everyone's got that epiphany, that little light bulb moment. And mine was after about 2 years when we just kept making the same mistakes, and we felt as though we were just running in treacle. And that we had really good ideas. We felt we were not a bad company. We didn't think we were world beaters, but we kept losing landlords and staff and customers. It was a very, very difficult time. And as with everybody, I read The E-Myth. So that was my book that I read, and it wasn't very detailed in terms of the specifics that you had to do. I just knew the theory. I had to get out of the business. And then I read some other books, and auditing procedures, and really nerdy stuff, proper nerdy stuff, and just sort of understood how ISO 9001, if anybody's heard of that, it's like a quality standard. You'll have had it in the being a doctor and stuff. You had like loads of standards you had to perform to. And for me, it was a case of, right, well, how do I pick that up and how do I put that in our business? And if anybody's read From Stress to Success, you'll see the auditing procedure is pretty much the ISO auditing procedure with a few tweaks on it. We use words like non-conformance and OFI, which is an opportunity for further improvement, and minor and major. So I've used that, and I do that a lot in my business. I look externally for ways that other industries work and other businesses work. And, we picked our KPIs from Nissan, which is a big employer up here, and other automotive industries. And we've got various boards and stuff that we've pinched off the automotive industry and got our own ideas. So yeah, very quickly early on, I realized that we had to do something because what we were currently doing wasn't working. So I just wrote our manual, and it was the 20 pages of spelling and grammatical mistakes. It was embarrassing, but it was a start, and it was something that got us to where we are today. And just every couple of months we changed it, we adapted it, we made mistakes, we massively screwed up, but we just kept evolving it. And I always kept saying it, that is our Bible. Whatever happens, we follow that until somebody comes up with a better idea, and we don't deviate. And again, we've made mistakes, stuff's left along the way, but it's always that progression, it's always that moving and pushing forward.
Yeah, brilliant. Because until you've got something to refer to, there's no way to improve. So it's that whole, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it, or whatever that adage is. But
yeah. No, it is. It's great for staff. So I am like, love my systems just like you do, but we've had to evolve into more of a staff business, because if you get a good staff can write the systems for you, all right? But you can have the best systems on the planet, but if you've got, how to be polite, a nugget who can't follow it, then the system's just going to fall by the wayside. So we realized that it was as much of the systems as good. We had the systems we needed to train and develop the staff, and we learned very early on about that. And when we have really good systems, you need to be able to manage exactly what you said, manage and measure the staff performance based on something, and that is the baseline. And if they perform well, if they just follow the system and trust the process, they'll do well and they'll get the results we want. If they don't, then things go wrong, and then it's a case of, right, well, is it a skill or a will? So the only two things that can go wrong in a business is it's a person issue or it's a process issue. It's the only two things. Either somebody chose not to do something, or somebody did it and the process was faulty, it was wrong. If it's a person, then you look at it and you say, is it a skill or a will issue? Do we need to upskill that person to train them on the process, or are they choosing not to follow it, and that's a motivational issue? And then that's a completely different conversation you need to have with somebody. One's an arm around the shoulder, and one's what the hell's gone wrong with this? But because you've got the processes in place and you've got the training plans, and we've got something called a skills matrix, I won't bore you with the details. Because you've got that, you can then identify to see if the person, if it's a skill or a will, if they've previously had the training on carrying out a certain action, and then you can sort of manage that person accordingly. Because there's different ways you manage people, as you well know. Do you supervise them? Do you delegate to them? Do you coach them? Do you manage them? So there's various ways, and it depends on where they are with a skill or a will element, how you manage and coach or supervise that person. So it all fits in very nicely hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely. No, some real nuggets there. So how does that fit into your hiring process? Because you're saying it's a skill or a will, it's a person or a process. So if you've got, you're pretty confident your processes are good, and there's obviously a load of good people out there as well as some not so good. So how does that affect, or how has that influenced your hiring? Is there any tips you can give for people? How do you hire the right people for your business?
That's a really good question. Yeah, and believe it or not, the first thing we look at is values. We don't even look at their capability or competency. We look at the values. So we can teach them to be capable. They will become competent. But if somebody's got a different value set to us, then they'll never be the person that we want them to be. It's the same sort of people when they just say, right, how much money are you going to pay us? What's my bonus structure? What's my commission? We say that's a mercenary mentality. So if somebody comes and offers them £1 more, they'll go. So you want somebody with the same values as you, the same beliefs, who buy into the same things, understand where you want to take the company, and they will walk over broken glass for you. They'll haul themselves over hot coals. So the way we do it is fully enough, we're very systemised with this process, Steve. There's a surprise. So our values are be better, create a better company, give a better customer service, be a better you, together we are better. That's our value. So it's all about slowly moving towards a common goal, if you like. So when we sit down, we interview them, we ask the capability and competency questions. Of course we do. Can you value a house? Talk about this, talk about that. How do you let the property? Technical questions. But then we'll start asking questions about their values. So for us being better, one could be, imagine you wanted to progress in a role and you couldn't because you were blocked. How were you better? They don't know what our values are, or they might not know, the majority won't know, but we still ask them questions around their values. Is it foolproof? No, but it really does weed out the wheat from the chaff. So once they start, and again, that's what a probation period is for, that once you feel as though you've made that connection over values, you recruit them. And so long as you're training them to the best of your ability, they've got the best possibility of succeeding. So it's all about finding their values, having that training development plan. And it's a little bit like a newborn baby. The most vulnerable time a newborn baby or a new employee is right at the very beginning. So you don't just say, right, there's the manual, see you later. Just as you wouldn't say to the baby, there's some rusks, catch you in 3 months. You've got to really, really nurture that person to make sure that they know and understand. And the induction's important as well, getting them buying in on day one where you are and where you want to get to, and then just help and support that person.
Yeah, totally. I actually read Traction not so long ago, Gina Whitman. Reread it, I should say, because I've read it about 3 times, but I actually reread it and actually went through the values, the way he teaches it in there, just because it happened to be the book I was reading it at the time I needed to do this. And we put our values in place and got rid of or staff either left or they were sort of just left. Yeah, mainly left on their own accord, actually, when we started publishing our own values. This is what we stand for. This is who we are, exactly the same way that you've done. Actually, people just decided they didn't want to be a part of it. And it was great because in hindsight, you look back and think, wow, actually, they were holding things back. They weren't the right people in the right roles. And so, yeah, I totally 100% agree with you on all of that.
Yeah, because it's trust as well. There's a lot of, in business, you've got to learn to let go, and you can't let go to people who don't have the same values, because, that's when the hand gets dipped in the till or wrong decisions get made. And what we say to them is your mission statement is where you want to get to. So we're all aligned. It's like 100 meters track. It keeps you in your own lane. That's what the mission statement is. But the values is how you're going to get there. Now, in sales, which a large part of our business is sales, and estate agents haven't got a great name or reputation. We don't want people who, sell the granny just to make a sale. We don't want that. We want it to be honest. But we don't want to shout about honesty, integrity is a value, or we don't, because that should come as a given. It's a real sad industry if we've got to shout out, hey, come to Castledene, we won't lie to you. Come to Castledene, we won't rip you off. That's not saying a hell of a lot about the industry we operate in, is it?
No, I think integrity is one of those words which gets thrown into values just because it's sort of like standard. Actually, ironically, I had a company once called Integrity HR, which was a recruitment agency back in the day. We're going about 20 odd years now, but anyway, there you go. So you live and learn, don't you? But no, I totally agree with you. Cool. So here's a question actually, it came up. I'm going to flick to it now because I think it rides in with this really nicely. And we were talking about sort of getting staff in and writing your systems, your operation manuals. And you were saying you'd already got quite a few staff in when you started this process, really, and then you were rolling it out to them, or they were part of this. And so this actually question that I was asked, I got through email today from my help desk, and it just thought, you know what, I'm going to actually put this to John and get your views on this as well before I actually reply to my client with this answer. So I'll put this out as a joint answer on my Facebook group. So this is her question. So my biggest issue is getting the rest of the team to write procedures. It's impossible. Any tips on how I can do this, please, especially around accountability?
So the first thing, there's two things. Is one, they've got to buy in to what you're asking them to do. So if you ask somebody to do something, it's a bit like, if Jack, my 11-year-old, oh, can you make your bed? Oh, Dad, do I have to? Or can you come and, take the dog for a walk? Oh, do I have to? But if you either gamify it or you make it interesting or you share part of the bigger picture where by doing it, it's going to do for them, everybody is what's in it for me, right? So it's a case of, well, look, we're going to write these systems, these procedures. It's going to make you more efficient, make you more effective, better at your job. I'm going to be bringing in some sort of bonus and commission structure. You're going to have more chance to earn more money. You're going to be better off. I mean, that's literally off the top of my head, but that's the type of thing. And actually and give them time off as well to do it. If you're asking them to do something, you need to give them like 2 hours on a Friday afternoon in work time off. They're working from home, but just say, this is what I want. And these are the expectations, and actually be a little bit, not demanding, but set the rules of what you expect from them as well. Because if you just leave it open-ended, or you just say, just do it as and when, fit it around your work, it's just getting pushed down the priority list. So set the sell it so they buy into it. They can see why you're doing it, understand why. And also, this isn't going away, guys. I want this to be done. I'd love you to come along with us, but there's the door if you don't want to. And again, feedback as well. Feedback's a gift, unless you're getting bad feedback, and it doesn't feel it that way sometimes. But once they write the systems or the processes, feed them back to them, pat them on the back. Yeah, that's great. You forgot about this. So next time, let's do this, and try and just bring everybody together.
Yeah, cool. And one of the other things, just thinking about what we've done in our business as well to get people on board, and something I speak to my clients a lot about, is because we do a lot of our work on helping people to work with people like Philippines and stuff. So the cost of labor over there is much cheaper. And so one thing for companies that want to do that, not all companies do, and they want to work with people in the UK or USA or whatever, but for the companies that are open to this idea, then the idea is if they can create processes for the stuff they hate doing, this is the staff, they can then offload that to somebody else, i.e. the new person comes in, or they just be somebody coming in at a lower level than them. It doesn't need to be someone in the Philippines. And then, so you can actually sell it to them as well, saying you get to do more of the stuff you love to do and you're good at, and therefore you'll be even more value to the company. And then we can get rid of all that stuff you don't. So
yeah, good idea. Yeah, you write this, we'll give it away. You don't write it, you're going to do it forever.
Exactly. Yeah, it's yours. Idea, And the other thing as well, I think from a mindset point of view, and I don't know how effective it is, but it's something I've always done, is to say to people, like, when you go on holiday, I say, well, I'll give you an example. That I notice when my staff go on holiday, if they're aligned with values and stuff, they want the company to succeed, they'll be checking in. They'll be doing things when they're away. And you're like, no, you're on holiday. Stop checking in. And so what I say to them is, look, if you've documented your processes properly, then we can hand them over the minute you leave, and you can take them back when you come back. If you're not, then you're going to have this angst, this worry, and you might end up checking in and not enjoying your time off. So that's another way that I've sold it to our staff in the past.
Yeah, that's good. We separate our staff. This is just like metaphorically speaking into worker bees and rock stars. That's what we call them. And the rock stars, rough rule of thumb, you want 20% rock stars and 80% worker bees. And this is the proviso that everyone's got the same values, right? So rock stars are the ones that work like 7 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. You'll get emails off them at stupid o'clock in the morning, and the weekends and stuff. And worker bees are just 9 till 5. They just come in 9 till 5, and that's fine, because I couldn't think of anything worse than 100% rock stars all climbing over each other to be the top dog. It would be just carnage. But you can tell that it's the rock stars they're on holiday, and you've got to say. In fact, one of the girls who manages my property portfolio, she'll email, because I'm an early riser, so I'll email her like stupid o'clock in the morning, like 5:30, and I get a response at 5:45, and I've got to say, Ashley, if you email me once more, I'm going to sack you. Bugger off till 9 o'clock till you start. And then come back to us and, ha, so she knows I'm joking. But it's the same sort of thing. You want to, it's a nice feeling to know that people are so aligned with where you want to take the company, and they've bought into the company, that they're prepared to work out of hours to get the same thing as you want.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's It's one of those things, I think, as a business owner, when that happens to you for the first time and somebody's going out of their way and taking their time out to basically serve you and your business, that is a feeling that is quite remarkable. So yeah,
brilliant.
Totally get you. Cool. Right. I wanted to actually talk about process mapping very briefly. And the reason I want to talk about this, because for most people, it's a pretty dry subject. Now, I'm a bit of a process map flowchart geek. I did a degree in computing and came top of the year in systems analysis and design. So
very good.
Pat on my back there. So of all things to be, top of the year at. Anyway, so when I teach this in our course, in our systemization courses, this is the moment. Once you get people over this and they accept they're just going to have a go, this is the massive aha moment often. Mm-hmm. It's suddenly, now I get it. Now I see what a system is. Now I see how I can get stuff out of my head. So you talked about this a lot in Stress to Success. And I just wondered how you do. I don't think you did a degree in computing, if I remember correctly. How did you get introduced to the idea of process mapping, and how do you get your clients on board with it? And any tips or objections you get, how do you overcome them, that sort of thing. So just around this idea of process mapping, and what do you think it's as exciting as I do?
Probably not, but I think it's pretty. I do love the systems, and do you know what I do? I don't actually like the process of writing the systems, but I absolutely love it. It's a bit like Hannibal Smith off the A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together. Yeah, I love the end result, and when things go smooth, and if this happens, that person gets involved, and the system does this and automatically does that. I mean, I know your system when we were just booking in this podcast is absolutely slick, and that's what, when it works. It's great with my coaching. I've got, we use Asana, and then I've got the various other bits of tool and software and Stripe and all that sort of stuff. And it just works well. So with me, what really got me into it, because I'd never heard about process mapping before, but when I wanted to, before I got involved in property, I was a health and safety officer and an internal quality auditor. So I worked for a company and I did lots of internal quality auditing, very like low level stuff, nothing that intelligent, if I'm honest. But part of the new ISO, for the listeners out there, ISO is International Standards Organization, something like that. And effectively what that means is you systemize businesses to operate in a certain way. And it's to be able to, so if there was a product breaking down or a service that didn't work well, you can retrospectively look back and find the exact moment at when it broke down. So my dad had an engineering company. And if anything went wrong, it was like, right, was the metal tested? How was it made? What carbide tips did you use to make it? And every little bit of thing along the way was documented. So if it broke, we found out what point broke. So we had to process map some of these systems and processes. And it literally was, I haven't got any on my desk, but it literally was just Post-it notes and just whack them on a whiteboard and just write down the headline of the process, the headline of the action, and then just a little felt tip pen and do it all around, and just as simple as that, and make it easy. And then when you're writing down the process, that's when you put a bit more meat on the bone. And I think the reason why people don't do it is business owners tend to be more entrepreneurial. They tend to be more emotional. Well, this is a very logical thing. So you've been a doctor and you've been a systems geek. You're very logical. I'm logical, not as much as you, but I'm a lot more logical than I am emotional. So I think that's why it comes a bit easier to you and I. But some of my guys, just you're talking about it, and it's just very hard for people to understand the importance of a system and also how to process map it. But for me, it literally is just Post-it notes and a marker on a board and just try and work things out. And well, if that breaks, then what happens? And if that doesn't happen, then who takes this phone call? And what's important for us is to use SMART objectives. So SMART goals, be very specific, make sure it's measurable, agreed, realistic, or agreed, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So don't just say, or return a call when you can, because you know what's going to happen. They're not going to return the call. And when you pull them up, oh yes, Steve, it was the next thing on my list. Well, that's BS, because they've forgotten about it till you reminded them. So in all of our procedures, it is a thing like, return call by 3:30 the next day. Do this on a Monday. Don't do that on a Tuesday. You've got to do it. And also standards as well. So when we're doing a certain thing, it has to be a standard. So, and then that standard is detailed somewhere. So it's normally 1 to 4. I won't bore you with the details, but 4 being exceeding, 3 being performing, under developing and underperforming. And there's a definition of what each one is. So that's for the entire company, no matter what process, and even people, we can define whether they're performing or exceeding or developing at a certain task. So once you get that level of sort of definition into a process, then you can then it's a lot easier to manage and measure that process. But process mapping, I mean, some really good bits of software. I don't know what you guys tell your students, but some really good bits of kit out there that can help you with that process if you need to do it.
Yeah, we use I try and push Lucidchart because it's just super easy.
Yeah,
but Draw.io is the cheap and cheerful option, which I always, if they don't want to pay for anything, then but Lucidchart it's just easy to use.
And there's so many templates as well on it. I was looking at it at the weekend because that's just how I rock and roll these days.
Yeah. Saturday night.
Yeah. Living the dream.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I thought you were going to carry on talking, so I wasn't actually ready to ask you another question then. Cool. One thing actually, as you were talking then, it just I realized the time, but I want to ask you this because it just came up and popped into my head. So before we were talking about getting people to write their process maps, and you've got to put time aside and say, look, 2 hours of the week, that's your process mapping moment, and you just mentioned something then about being smart with your goals. So being really specific in times, etc. And so this is, as you were saying that, and I was thinking about training and about actually getting people to better themselves to become more valuable to you as a business. So the reason that popped into my head was I was thinking, when we started out, we used to say, oh yeah, you can do some training or whatever you want, you can, whatever you like, just go away and do it, and there was never this specific timed, set aside time for them to do it, whatever. So just how do you deal with training? How do you really encourage your new staff to actually take time out and do it? Because that's the hardest thing we found, to actually get people to actually learn stuff.
Yeah. So one of the best things we have ever implemented in the business was something called Investors in People. So again, it's like another accreditation. We were going to go for that ISO back in the day, probably about 2015, 16, I think. And I was explaining to the guys, it's a systems thing. And my manager said, but we already do systems. So what do we get? I went, well, I suppose we get a nice little emblem. Oh, well, it's a lot of money and a lot of work to go through that. So anyway, we went down IIP, Investors in People. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. You invest in your staff. It's a bit more complicated than that, but it's all about communication and the feedback loop and all that sort of jazz and training. So taking it back a step, I actually looked into what motivates people, and it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Alder for Hertzberg, McClellan, all these sort of guys. And they talk about one thing. Maslow called it self-actualization. I think McClellan called it ambition. There's attainment, and it is progressing towards a goal. So where you are now, people want to be better than what they are. That doesn't necessarily mean you get promoted. It just means you want to be better where you are. So if you take a football analogy, unfortunately for me, I'm a Sunderland supporter. So it's not as if we're going to win any leagues or the FA Cup, but every single player just wants to be better at where they are in their position. It's just common sense. And we want to be, as business people, we don't want to be, the next apprentice or Lord Sugar or whatever. We just want to be able to be better than what we are. So we drew up this thing called the skills matrix, which I mentioned before, and effectively it is all their actions, and we grade them 1 to 4, but it's backed up with facts and evidence. So you would come in, Steve, and we would have things like your behaviors, like your attitude, your solutions focus, customer service, all that sort of jazz, and we'll score you. If you disagree with something, we back it with facts and evidence. So then we get a status quo, and everywhere there's a 1 and a 2, which is underperforming or developing, we will come up with a bespoke, specific plan to get you from a 1 and a 2 to a 3 and a 4. So now this isn't like generic customer service training Friday at 3 o'clock, generic arrears training Monday at 9 o'clock or whatever. This is Steve Day's specific training plan. This is JP's specific training plan. And now there's it's keeping it interesting, it's keeping it relevant. And the guys are interested because it's bettering them and them alone, their specific plan. It's a bit like you and me at the gym, and we'll do a generic diet plan, a generic training plan. well, you're a bloody ultra marathon runner, so and I'm a 6'3", 18 stone rugby player. There's not a chance I'm running the same distance as you, and there's not a chance you're squatting what I'm squatting. So, but taking that analogy for old-fashioned training, we would still have the same training. So it just couldn't compute in my head that why completely different goals and desires and wants, but we'd have different same training. So what we do is we do bespoke training, and we get results quicker, and we can literally say to them, this is your bespoke plan. So it's very much individualized what we do. Put as much effort and time into training as you would anything else in business, because a lot of people I see who employ people chuck the manual at them because they're very proud of the manual and say learn it, and then they don't learn it, and then they're like, oh, they were crap, they didn't have the same values or whatever. It's like, no, you've got to nurture that person as best you can to try and give them all the tools they can to succeed, because if you don't, it's just going to be history repeating itself. So put as much effort into training development as you do anything else in the business.
Yeah. If anything, I would say, like, I would even more than agree with you. I think that training and bringing staff up, it not only has a direct impact on your business that benefits you, it helps you. I'm at a slightly, actually, not far along in that, getting out of the way of my own business as you are. And I can see that the more time I invest and the more training I do, the more I can elevate myself and delegate down. And it's a simple correlation. It's just like, that is how you get out of a business. You need to train people or bring people in, obviously, but if you've got good people in the company, then why not train them up? So yeah. 100%. Cool. Okay, so I've got a few sort of signature questions, I guess you call them, or quick fire questions, just to finish off, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Cool. So what question should I have asked you if only I'd known to?
Oh, do you know what? Probably that one. No, that's a very good question. Where does your passion from systems in scale and business come from?
Go on then.
So now I've got to think.
I was like, what a brilliant question.
Yeah, great question. If only I knew that. So my quest or my knowledge for systems came, the long short, the very, very, very short and abbreviated answer is my dad had an engineering business. I write about it in the book. We lost him very, very suddenly to cancer. And because he was integral to the business, we lost the business 3 months after. The receivers were called in, and it was just really crappy time. I worked for the company's health and safety. My brother worked on the shop floor. My mum was a director, but didn't work because she'd had breast cancer. So she couldn't get a job. She was slightly looked after with a couple of insurances, and the house was paid off, but not nowhere near the life that she was accustomed to. And I must have locked that away in my brain, because when I didn't think anything more of systems or processes until I started my business like several years later. And then that's when it was just like, wow, that light bulb moment, right? I need to learn about it because I've been through it. And they always say that, an entrepreneur or business person always has some sort of pain, or not pain, but something that's happened in the past to remind them of what they need to do moving forward. So that's a big thing for me. And in scale and business, it's just, I think I looked at my dad, and my granddad was quite reasonably successful in business, and just what they did. I wanted to do it different. I wanted to do it, dare I say, better, because systems and not being integral to the business. So that's my main passion. So I think short answer is my dad. I think everything came from my dad and my family, really. Yeah.
Sounds like quite a compelling reason, really. If you live through something like that, then it's going to impact you and impact you.
Yeah, you do, and you just never want your kids to go through it. And it's a bit. It was a crappy time, to be blunt, and but it definitely shaped me who I was, as in, toughened me up, massively mentally toughened me up, and obviously, my sporting background as well. So physically, that toughened me up. But getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do a report is absolutely nothing compared to the crap that you go through with that. So it's like when people twist about, oh, I've had a hard day, I've done 37.5 hours worth of work this week, and you're thinking, I remember my first part-time job as well. It's like, it just toughens you up mentally to be prepared for whatever comes across.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you very much. So I say 5, but any apps, just be specific, we'll say 5, but you can go either way, it's fine, either side. Any 5 apps you couldn't live without, either phone apps, browser extensions, or good old computer apps?
Yeah. So Asana for the first one. That's from a coaching business. That's absolutely been brilliant. Zoom, and again, that's a really good one. Do you know what? I'm going to have a quick little look on here if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. I did the same thing when someone asked me the other day.
Xero.
Yeah.
I love my Xero app. Dropbox. And Stripe.
Thank you very much.
Cardless. That's cheap. And Stripe /Go Cardless.
Yeah, we don't do direct debit, so we don't need Stripe. I would only go cardless, sorry, so we only use Stripe. But and we actually moved from Dropbox to solely on Google Workspace now, using shared drives. So we only have once you're embedded, you probably don't want to move, but so we can have a single login for the business, and that's it. So there's only one app. So that's the other thing. But all the rest of them, I totally agree with. Who do you think would make a great next guest for this podcast?
About systems. I think if you could
it's systemize the business. The podcast is Systemize Your Success.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be specifically on business systems, but just to put that caveat in there before you answer.
Right. I think obviously Gerber would be a great one. Is it Sam Carpenter, Built to Sell?
Yeah. He did Work the System as well, didn't he?
Work the System. The guy who wrote Built to Sell, I thought that was a very good book.
Yeah, can't remember who he is, but yeah.
Yeah. So the one thing I took out of that was when you build it to sell, obviously, is that you've got a number, and you put it in your top drawer every year. You know, when you're doing your year's resolutions, and if somebody comes to sell your business, providing you can walk away with that number, don't worry about the deferment or whatever. Then you should take it, because when the emotions get into it, when you're on about selling your business, a lot of people want more and more and more up front. Effectively, they're being a little bit more greedy with that. So I think he would be a really good one. And then someone who's set up franchise. I tell you, there's a good guy called Glenn Ackroyd. He set up a business called YouMove, and they set up a franchise, and they got a ridiculous amount of money when they exited it. Many multiples, because they'd systemized it as a franchise. And he's a good guy as well. Very, very clever fella.
I think I know Glenn.
Yeah.
If he's the same Glenn we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, let me know and I'll do an intro if you want to.
Yeah, that'd be great. If I don't, because there's probably more than one.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, last 2 questions. The title of this podcast is Systemize Your Success. What does success mean to you?
Success is achieving whatever your goals are. So whatever you want, so long as you're achieving it, then I think you're being successful.
Cool. Short and sweet. Like it. And lastly, do you believe you can systemize your success?
Absolutely. You can systemize anything. Absolutely. If you surround yourself with good people, you've got the knowledge, you've got the desire to systemize it as well, i.e. the letting go part, and you trust people, then you can systemize absolutely any process.
Cool. In case anybody wants to find you, find out what you do, connect with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Facebook, John Paul, Instagram, John Paul Mentor. I'm always about Facebook. Just get in touch. Be good to connect with people.
Cool. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a real pleasure and nice to properly catch up with you.
Cheers, Steve. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining me and listening to this episode. I'm well aware there are hundreds of great business podcasts out there, and you chose to listen to this one, and for that I am truly grateful. Hopefully what you heard today took you one step closer to building a successful business, so you can share your passion with the world and serve an ever-growing number of people. If you got value out of today's episode, then so will someone else that you know. By sharing with others what has helped you along your way, you will grow your influence and be the guy or girl that everybody wants to know. So please hit the share button right now, and also remember to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss future episodes. It's impossible for me to cover absolutely everything in these podcasts, so please do head over to SystemizeYourSuccess.com right now and download the show notes, transcriptions, and some of my best frameworks and systems for free. Thanks again for tuning in and being a part of this amazing community. Until next time, this is Dr. Steve Day, and you've been listening to Systemize Your Success.